Yeah, you can tell them now. It's official. Let's do this. Visca el Barça.
Yes, it is finally official. Marcus Rashford is an FC Barcelona player, and I'm super excited. I'm so happy that finally he has been announced. We have been waiting, a while for that announcement, a few days. We've had various leaks of him, around the club, the setting up the announcement video, him at the offices, and not getting the announcement, but it's finally here. He will join from Manchester United on loan until the end of the season with a option to buy around 30 million, 35 million, you know. And like I said, I'm really happy that this deal happened. I've been wanting this deal since December, since January. When it didn't happen, as you can see, I put a tweet out here. The difference of how happy he is. He definitely was happy to at Villa, but you could tell it was tough for him because he was holding out until like the final day of January to join Barcelona, and it didn't happen. You could tell he was a bit disappointed, but it finally has happened. He's super happy, as you can see in all these pictures. He will wear the number 14, an iconic number. Henry wore that number, so we can hope that Rashford can make some history, and I think he will. I think he has the ability to, and in such a different environment, where it's been, so tough at Manchester United, the past couple years, all the media, criticism and hate and all the stuff he gets, you know, he got while he was over there. I think this is a new, you know, a new chapter, a new way for him to really redeem himself and to really, show what he is capable of, to prove the doubters wrong. And yeah, it was just so nice seeing, all the videos that came out, the presentation. You could tell that definitely this is a type of player that they want to do more for, because I think Barcelona, they understand, not just the type of player he is, the ability he has, but the type of marketability he has, the all the fans he brings. I mean, the fans outside the offices, there was so many outside the store too, waiting to see him, waiting to buy the new shirt with his number and everything. And he did have a couple, what is it? A couple quotes. He had a press conference at the end in the Barca store. He had one. He also talked a little bit to one of the media guys earlier, but we'll go over the press conference that he had a little bit. He even mentioned, like I mentioned earlier, he did want to come in January. He did confirm it. He said, "I always wanted to play for Barcelona. In January, I wanted to come. It didn't happen, so I ended up going to Villa." And he said he had a good time there, but that since the summer rolled around, he said, in the video that, or in the live, I should say, that he's, he has options, of course, that he's always looking at options, but without being disrespectful to the other teams, he had to make the choice that's best for him. And obviously, the choice was Barcelona. He wanted so badly to come. Hansi Flick wanted him as well. As the winger signing, we didn't get Nico Williams. There was a few others we were looking at, but I am happy that Rashford is the one, because not only, like I said, the ability he has, but just the fact that it's just a good deal for the club. You're not spending huge on a player, and he over exceeds expectations. If he does really well, you have that buy option that's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. We are getting a player who should be entering his prime years. And yeah, he had some other quotes. They asked him, how does it feel to be at Barcelona? What you think of being at the club? What you think of what you seen in training so far in the couple days that he has been, able to train with the squad? How will he adapt? And he had answers for all those. He said that it wasn't a tough decision. His first choice, like we said, is Barca. It's a family-oriented club, which he did mention a few times throughout like the presentation earlier with the media guy and at the press conference. He kept mentioning that it's a family club. You know, he mentioned that he wants to be a part of the culture, to understand the club. Like obviously, what's on, what happens on the pitch is the most important, but he wants to experience everything, about the club, and I'm sure it will leave a really positive impact on him. There is obviously big pressure to play at Barcelona, no doubt about it, and there will be media scrutiny. We know how the media is with Barcelona and just Spanish media in general. But I'm sure if he does really well, he will succeed. They did ask him about Manchester United, what happened the last couple years there, and he said, he didn't, want to be disrespectful to Man United. That he had some great memories there, but things happen. Football is how it is. Football is football. Things gonna happen. Things don't always pan out the way you think it will. But they asked him about Yamal as well. He said that he's an incredible talent. What he's seen, and Marcus did mention that he also did watch various games throughout the season. Last season, especially in the Champions League. He mentioned that the dressing room atmosphere is so good because they're so young, they're so mature in the way they play. But you could tell that they are young and the vibes they bring. You know, and I think we all feel that it's kind of like one of the most likable squads because all the players are basically for most of us around our age, in their teenage years and their early 20s, you know, and they bring such a good close family vibe. It's such a close knit group, and Marcus did mention that he wants to win the biggest trophies. He obviously wants to win the Champions League and do well. He watched the Champions League matches last year and really enjoyed them, but obviously he wants to bring that trophy. And I think we all want that. I think he can help us a lot. Like I said, this is a transfer I've been wanting. I've basically been begging for and been just glazing on Twitter like every opportunity I could get. If you just see my tweets, the amount of times I tweeted about Rashford is absolutely insane. But man, I'm so happy that he's here. I think a lot of us are happy. The announcement is huge. Everyone is talking about it. So many people. It was so nice to see on the tweet I showed earlier, one of the tweets I put. There were a lot of quotes, talking about people saying how happy they were for him and how much he deserves it. And, how much he struggled. And they're so happy that he can, be able to hopefully turn it all around. And I am too. I think he will. I think under Hansi Flick, he will absolutely thrive. Hansi Flick has made so many players better, not just at Barcelona, but at Bayern Munich too. He is that type of coach. He can bring the best out of you with, especially, how hard the team trains. And yeah, I'm really excited to finally see him. We should see him in preseason. I did hear that the Japan part of the preseason tour is canceled because of some payments or whatever didn't go to Barca. But you know we had the preseason apparently in South Korea. They'll be going to, and hopefully we get to see a few minutes. He gets match fit, and yeah, hopefully he can help us a lot through the season. Whether it be left wing, right wing, as striker, wherever he plays, I'm sure he'll do great. Let me know what you guys think about the transfer, and if you are enjoying it as much as I am, and what you think he could bring to the team. As always, Visca Barca, and I'll see you guys next time.